Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Media Cocktail Podcast. I am your host, Not Brandon, otherwise known as Brendan, joined by the script editor for Not Brandon, the YouTube channel. Michael, how's it going?
It's going all right. Finally get to drink after this week. It's been a rough week, which I guess we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. I'm also joined by former YouTube extraordinaire, now Twitch streamer on the rise. He's bigger than Ninja, believe it or not. I would believe it. Will, how's it going?
3 weeks going, man. I'm doing great.
There you go. Sounds excited.
Someday he'll be able to S-rank all the Dante Devil May Cry missions.
Devil May Cry 1, Dante Must Die mode, yeah. Hey, we are on mission, 17. We're getting there.
All right, so we already have some podcast news, update on the show. We're going to be adding a new segment next week. And also, we're eliminating a segment. We're eliminating the news of the week section. I know. You're so used to it by now. We're 2 episodes in. You're like, oh my gosh, how could you possibly cut the news section, even though you didn't have it last week?
We didn't have it last week.
Blasphemy, I tell you.
I decided that it wasn't necessary to have that week to week. We can't. If there's a big news item one week, we will definitely talk about it, especially if it's relevant to the podcast. If it's not, then we won't talk about it. We don't need the. We're not a news channel. We're a opinionated group of people.
Yeah, last week we spent 2 hours, just 2 hours, just talking about our opinions on Spec Ops: The Line and what we did of that week.
Right. So, then that was Friday that episode came out. Saturday, I don't know. I kind of don't like it when I say that things are out by a certain time because sometimes they're not. And then I'm just mad at myself while I'm editing. It's like, this is not going to come out.
You have been caught a liar and a cheat,
right.
Dude. You got to own up to it.
My channel was over before it started.
Your channel is already over.
And now you have become the very thing you have sworn to destroy.
Something we're going to add to the show as a fun kind of thing that I think really fits in with the theme, and we've just been discussing it for a while, is adding a drink of the week selection to the podcast. So each podcast will be making a specific mixed drink of varying varieties, and each week we'll have a different drink to talk about at the end of the show, and that'll be we'll be closing the show with the rating of whatever drink or cocktail we made that week.
Yes, and we are just going to pretend that I didn't, that there was not a miscommunication, and I am drinking that drink right now.
Right, yeah, there was no miscommunication. We understand each other perfectly. We
are professionals. I am a professional.
We'll be in sync.
We've got the shit together. Everything is organized. Everybody listened to, you know what? We are so organized. Everybody listened to Pure Comedy the day that we announced that we were going to do it.
Exactly.
Everybody did it. We've already watched Death Parade. We've all watched it already.
Yeah, and we already know what Will's going to pick.
We've read every book. We've seen every movie. Everything. We're just ahead of the game.
But we still haven't finished Eskimo rank Dante Must Die. We have not done that just yet. That's still a work in progress.
No, we're working on that. You can watch the live streams for that. You can also watch us work on Resident Evil as Will and I play RE6 and RE5, which you can catch on twitch.tv/Hawkeye726 and
Linkfin1291.
Seamless plugin.
There you go. Seamless content.
And,
content. Content.
And while we're at it, Resident Evil 5 is so much better than RE6.
It's so true. Will, how was your week this week?
I've been streaming. I've been streaming throughout the week, trying to be more consistent with that. Been playing through, throughout this week. I've just been playing Devil May Cry 1 HD, right?
Yeah, I've been watching your not your podcast, your streams.
Thank you for being a good audience member, dude.
Praise me.
Bow down.
You are my god.
Honestly, that's not even half of what I want. But go on.
Pure comedy. Okay.
Pure comedy.
And I just been mainly playing that because I don't know. I just been wanting to go back to the first Devil May Cry game. Like, when I first played it, it was initially being like, I like this game enough that I really want to go for that, S rank mode. sort of deal, and it's been infuriating.
Yeah,
It is really difficult.
yeah. That mission 16 that I saw you playing, it was like 6 minutes. And I was like, how is that like possible?
But you were there when I finally got it.
Yeah, I was there, but like I'm still like I think I caught like the tail end of that stream, so I'm still like, how did he do it? Who is this man? Who is this god? Who is this Prometheus who has bestowed this knowledge onto me?
Praise me more.
No, I refuse.
Damn it.
Death to gods, pure comedy.
But finally getting that S rank though, it's like a very exhilarating feeling, because I do think because the game is like so well made. I just find it so much, or I just find myself coming back to it. It's.
I mean, I would be very, very surprised for the person who is like, yeah, I'm gonna like play through all these games. Do I hate them? Fuck no. This game is garbage. I hate it, but I'm gonna still like S rank everything.
Well, I did play through Uncharted and on brutal mode, and that was infuriating, and I hate the game now because of it.
Well, hating like starting off the game hating it, or like starting the game saying like, yeah, I hate this game, but I'm gonna like play through it anyway. And after when you like
Oh no,
have like a game,
I completely acknowledge that was my own fault. Like I did that because of that. I had had the terrible mindset of, yeah, I'm gonna do things on the highest difficulty, especially for trophies. God.
punished will. Punished will. I feel in my arm, my leg.
But I think there's just because the first Devil May Cry game has such an arcadey feel to it. It's as much crap as they throw at you. It's actually not that difficult to dodge. Granted, I had to focus a lot to do so. But memorizing all the attack patterns of each enemy, especially since they only throw one type of enemy at you per stage, likely due to hardware limitations, it's not that bad to try to run in and just deal damage and basically not get hit. It's a game that's all about improving, right? You start out kind of crap, but especially since I'm trying to go for the S rank, I'm trying to go through the game much more stylishly, avoiding the damage, trying to be more efficient and all that. And it feels really good to improve upon myself, I suppose. So I've been having a lot more fun. I've been having a lot more fun playing through this game throughout the week. Because initially I was going to try and do a schedule of like, what was it? Devil May Cry and Demon Souls, alternate between those two.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I just want to keep playing Devil May Cry.
You're just I like how you're like, I'm improving myself. It's like it was like 2 weeks ago. My wife fucking hated me. She never wanted to see me again. She was like, you need to improve yourself. So I started playing Devil May Cry. Was playing on S rank, and I was like, babe, check it out. 1,000 orbs, 6 minutes, and she got so wet. She was like, honey, you're the fucking best. There's no more problems in our marriage. You're the best guy now. And now I get all of that.
Damn.
That's some story, dude.
You gotta call it how it is.
So I've been having a lot of fun with Devil May Cry, more so than I thought I would, despite its difficulties. How was your week, Mike?
If I'm being honest to everyone, unfortunately, I've not been faithful. I have been doing a lot of schoolwork, and it's been literally it has been literally seeping the life out of me. But I've been doing it, especially since like I haven't had exactly like a full week to do what I needed to do. So really, all I've been really doing is schoolwork, and I've been really looking forward to this. Looking forward to the podcast, mainly for the drink, like 25% for the drink. But to as like a side note,
sorrows away, my friend.
well, as like a side note, one thing that happened when I was like making this totally not drink this totally innocuous drink that will not be featured in next week's podcast. That is going to be the drink of the week, because we are professionals and we know what we are doing. I was basically like making, and I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of alcohol, and I'm just staring at it like even now, and it's like it's really starting to hit me right now, because it's just so much. It's like got like 2 to 3 shots worth of unnamed alcohol. Unnamed.
Spoiler.
Unnamed.
It's
No one
moonshine.
knows.
Spoiler alcohol. That's what we're gonna call it. Spoiler alcohol. So, the only real thing that I can say like I didn't do, other than like my chances of like watching, my good friends Brendan and Will stream, was obviously listening to to the album,
Right.
and the occasional
Spoiler
watching Business Blaze.
Spoiler album.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it. That's why I was like the album.
The
Don't
album.
don't want to give any spoilers to the people who did not listen last week. Which, if you haven't, why don't you just stop by? Just get a
It's
little.
literally
context.
the thumbnail of the podcast. I think they know.
They probably only read the title and didn't even notice the thumbnail.
And how
They were
is
just
it-
that invested?
All right,
They
hold
just
on.
aimlessly
How was I
clicked.
supposed to know? I don't know what the thing for the podcast is.
The thumbnail.
You can't project into the future.
No, I don't. I didn't unlock that skill rank yet. Sorry, I'll have to get up a few levels in order to get that.
Well, actually, it's pretty easy. You gotta get to the 8th circle in Mike's church, then you can
There
do
you go.
that.
Well,
If you jump up 3 times.
Someone's been reading more. Fuck. Someone's been reading more Stranger in a Strange Land.
Well, I have to. Well, okay, I don't have to, but I want to.
Have you finished the book yet?
Not yet. I just got to part 5.
All right. Yeah, actually like before I was like I'm gonna finish Stranger in a Strange Land today, and then homework's like, how about you focus on me and only me, and then you have the podcast after this, so you could go fuck yourself.
Damn. It's getting heavy on this podcast.
Yes, it's adults only, at this point
Damn.
forward.
Yeah.
For all you babbies that are listening to the podcast.
I thought you were about to say for all you bastards. It's like, damn.
No, I
Wait,
I haven't gotten there yet to where I'm just cursing out our audience. But yeah, Brendan, how's your week been?
That's alright. I've been streaming a lot more recently. I've been playing RE6 still, the 801 campaign with Will, which we gave our thoughts on last week, as well as RE5.
Are you still
I kind of enjoy RE5.
Are you still playing RE6?
Yes.
Yes, we're almost
It's
done.
It's like, what, 6 months in the making now?
Yeah, well,
Holy-
it's because it's been such a slog to get through. Like we would play through one campaign and be like, "Oh my god, can we please stop?" It's like that scene in Harry Potter where Dumbledore has to drink the poison water or whatever.
And he's just like, and just begging to be like, no more. No more.
No more.
No more.
They're like,
never
you
more.
have to finish it.
Never more.
Never more.
So we play like 2 campaigns, take like a month or 2 hiatus, then come back.
Yeah. And now we're
However-
just grinding through Ada Long's campaign with like gritted teeth.
Now, thankfully, since we have a streaming schedule for it, we have a much higher chance of actually finishing it.
Yeah, we're probably gonna finish it, and it's gonna be replaced by RE5, which I actually enjoy. I like RE5.
RE5 is good. I remember like everyone did not like it, but RE5 is just a good game.
Yeah,
Well,
it seems like just solid, you know.
I remember people. The reception I got out of it was people were sort of. It was like a guilty pleasure. They were like, it's feeling less like a Resident Evil now, but it's still fun.
From what I heard, it was kind of like panned when it like first came out, but as of like years recent, it's been getting like a lot more like love.
I mean, probably because a really bad Resident Evil title came out to show its true, like its nicer qualities, I suppose.
Oh yeah. Well, again, like we said last week, it's like we can tell where the designs are going with RE5. From RE5 to RE6, you can tell where like they're going and where they're thinking.
That and the fact that people who like grew up with the title probably has like a more outspoken voice, and I don't know. I mean, I certainly really like it. Probably, I don't know for qualities that the developers intended for, like, thinking about it, but it's just stuff that keeps me more engaged overall.
But as I was saying, it's just like like the thing I just imagine is like people are just like, come on, RE5 isn't like RE4, but and they're like pointing at RE6. It's like, it's better than this. This is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, so in playing that, I've also started to take up a stream of the week. So I'm starting to play one game or two games a week. And the game I'm currently playing, or I was currently playing, is Outlast. I'm trying to get through a lot of horror games because I don't really find that horror games are all that scary. Just horror as a genre has not really scared me for a while, especially since becoming an adult. And so I decided to play through some of the top-rated horror games, like this will scare the crap out of you, kind of thing. Boy, was Outlast a bad start. Outlast is not good. I think there's I'll start with praise. I think there's a high amount of animation quality in some of the scenes, and I think that some of the scares are well animated, like they thought about like how they would grab you or whatever. And there's definitely a lot of like tension built in the atmosphere, but it doesn't stick around for after a certain amount of time, especially when you're stuck. Eventually, it just becomes boring. A lot of the enemies are like the same. It's like this like weird stealth mechanic that doesn't really go anywhere. You never get the ability to distract. You never get the ability to distract anybody, or like use the environment to help you like navigate through it. Except for in one case where they force you to do the same mechanic over and over and over again, which is pushing the crate in the way of the door. All right.
Yeah, that was like a mechanic that seemed like last minute to where it's like, oh fuck, we need to this is going to be like a tax write-off. We need to like make another like mechanic so we could like have our taxes reduced. Let's just fucking push doors and something, but let's not make it like too obvious. So let's like make it like all in just like this one section.
Right, but it immediately breaks the game because there's a bunch of like stuff piled up in front of doorways, and that's supposed to be the reason you can't pass through the hallway. But when you add a mechanic of, hey, you can move stuff, now I'm like, well, why would this pile of stuff be in my way? Why don't I just grab it and start throwing things around? On top of, why doesn't my character grab something like a blunt object as a weapon? Doesn't he? Again, these things don't have to work. They just have to be tried. You have to show the player, hey, you can't do this because of X. And that's it. You know, if the first thing you did is you pick up a blunt object and you try to break a window, it doesn't work. You go, okay, well, at least these windows are super strong, or whatever. And if you do the same thing with like especially that big boss enemy, then I would be like, okay, yeah, I get why you wouldn't be able to defeat this thing. And that's why you should avoid it, you know? But they don't do that. They just tell you, hey, don't go near it. And then like their attack animations are like super weak, so they hit you once and they expect you to run away, so they stand there. And there's the amount of gap in time where it's like, if somebody really wanted to get me, they wouldn't give me that much time. That's clearly a game mechanic thing, you know. Like it's
I don't
know.
Like it's trying to be a horror game, like the whole "they're gonna get you" kind of mechanic, where like you have to run away, like, oh god, please don't, no.
Yeah, I remember seeing one like enemy during your stream, and he literally like he punched you once, and he just like stared at you. It's like, well, are you gonna run or am I just have to stand here awkwardly?
Exactly. Right, and I think I made that same comment. He's like, "Are you gonna go? What are you doing?"
Bro,
the sound design is really weak.
Bro, this is a horror game. You need to like run. Aren't you scared?
Some of the jump scares are just stupid. Like there's like people that can sneak up behind you despite the fact that you can't hear them. And the one that really bugs me is that big enemy, because that enemy weighs like 1,000 pounds and has a bunch of sound design around him to tell you that he's in the area. Like he drags chains around and there's like a big thud, but somehow he's able to sneak up on you and you're not able to know. Like it's so weird.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem I have with Outlast is, for a horror game, it relies a lot on superficial scares, which is just, oh my god, these people are being tortured, look at how brutal this is, and then the occasional boom.
It's also a game that I think is surprisingly funny. Like there's a couple of occasions where I think like there's things that
The
totally
elevator.
a joke.
The elevator.
Like the
joke.
elevator for one, or when you get thrown into a pile of corpses and they're like, "Find your way to the showers." Like it's like it's just like there's some things that are like kind of funny.
I need to be clean.
Right.
But it's just for a
I don't know, it's
horror game to rely on jump scares, like with very scripted jump scares, feels kind of weak.
Will and Brennan both know this. I am not a horror guy. I would not consider myself very into horror. The only horror game that or media I found to be interesting is Until Dawn. Because I personally thought it was very, very fun, at least with two of my friends playing, and you're still responsible for the deaths of like 6 or 7 people.
I hated Until Dawn, but that's a separate topic.
I found the story engaging, but horror is just not my thing. I think it's it's just not my genre. I find it very droll and dull, and and a lot of it requires you to like not believe, to be immersed in a world that's very breaking, and just is kind of nonsensical. But
I mean, it's just how the game like handles it. Like if you're willing to like suspend your disbelief about monsters and all of that, that's fine. But to make that monster any form of threatening, or to have it be immersed, the AI has to be done right.
Whenever I play a horror game or watch a horror movie, I'm like, none of the characters really make too logical of like sense, and it really, really tries to like push those boundaries. Now, I will say I've never seen seen classical horror movies that I've heard is like extremely good. Like I've personally never seen The Shining, nor, come to think of it, none of like his movies. But
We'll get there. Don't worry. We'll get there.
you'll train me good.
Because there is a difference between modern horror movies and classic horror movies.
Also, The Shining is like my second favorite movie of all time, so it's kind of like.
Yeah, you never. But I've never really seen it, so I can only speak from my experience.
Yeah.
But it's just not. It's just really hard for me to get into it. And Outlast just seemed like, ooh, booga booga. We're going to hit you with jump scares, and look, gore, right? It's so gory. You don't like gore,
Right?
And it's just not very engaging. And we even said in stream, there's like a lot of moments that he could have just gotten out whenever he wanted.
Oh yeah, like remember when you literally climbed out of the asylum?
Yeah, I literally climb out of the asylum. There is nothing around you except for hills, and while it would have been a struggle to survive out in the hills, at least you would have been out of that place. But no, your character like insists on going anyway, and then he gets his fingers chopped off, which is like, all right.
Once again, it's an entire thing of like, oh wow, it's like it made me cringe. Sure, I don't like seeing like body mutilation, but I wouldn't say it was scary.
Plus, what does you did like stop shortly after that, but what does having your fingers cut off really do for you?
Right.
It doesn't really
It doesn't affect gameplay at all. Like this is something that I keep talking about, and this is a problem with the video game industry as a whole, but specifically in horror, where horror is like could be really, really good for video games, like amazing for video games. And there's a bunch of examples where people used mechanics that were really, really interesting, but didn't go that far with it. So like Eternal Darkness, with like the game would crash, and there's like all kinds of different things. Metal Gear, like they take the controller away from you, or like they're able to read your memory card or whatever. Like there's a bunch of things you can do it in, especially in video games specifically, that would make amazing sense in a horror genre. They don't follow through on any of those things. Everything is just jump scares or survival mechanics, which are fine, but like we've been there, done that. Like the best horror game of the last 20 years is still Eternal Darkness.
And
so like
that one, it's kind of weird playing through that. It kind of feels more action than horror at times. Though probably because I didn't choose the one that made my sanity decrease faster.
What about Five Nights at Freddy's? That's the best horror game, right?
It's terrible.
What? You don't know horror then.
I think there's an interesting with Five Nights at Freddy's specifically, and we might play it on stream once. As I play through horror games, I'm actually playing through horror games because I've decided to start picking up another project. Mike's gonna roll his eyes. It's like, oh my god, here we go.
Well, see, like Five Nights at Freddy's, I think it's interesting because I get the appeal of it. You're trying to sort of prevent the jump scare. And sort of like, oh,
Right.
and like you're so focused, you're sort of left caught off guard until suddenly then they sneak up on you. You're like, oh god.
And there's potentially like interesting lore in the background to like look at, and there's like things to think about with it that might be a little bit deeper than the surface level. But like that's really all there is to it. And with video games, you can do like a million things. Like one of my favorite scenes in The Shining, or something they did in The Shining a lot, is they change the environment. So things will move in the background, or sets will like shift, and like they don't make any sense for the way that they should like layer on top of each other. But that's because that's part of the design of the movie. It's supposed to make you feel uneasy. So that's why they're doing that. What's funny is that a lot of people at the time just thought they were like continuity mistakes. So they were like, oh, the chair disappears in one scene and then reappears. Oh, oops, they forgot to put the chair there for the scene. Haha. But no, that's not what happened. They legitimately took the chair out of the scene and then put it back. And then and if you look throughout the whole film, they do that. I think in video games you could do that a lot. Especially, like, you could totally have levels that shift, that like are confusing. You can take control away from the player. Like I said, there's a million examples of what designers have done.
Like start off, like, you know, say you're the Haunted Mansion in Eternal Darkness. You know, you go into a kitchen, you leave, and then like it starts off with just chairs disappearing when you go back in.
Yeah,
and then suddenly you go, and eventually it escalates to like you go in, suddenly like, wait, how did I get to the library?
Yeah, there's like a lot of things that you could do with like making putting fear in a very like, and trying to make the most of the medium. Like the two things I think of is it's not really a horror game, but like that scene of Arkham Asylum where you're being affected by like by Scarecrow's fear gas, and suddenly you're like, it's like, oh fuck, has a game crash? Oh wait, no, it's restarted. Why is the Joker why is Joker now driving the Batmobile and just playing, and you get shot in the face and it sends you like to a game over screen. It's like press the middle button in order to dodge it, or the middle analog stick.
Or I think another game, it's not really a horror game like at all, but one example I think is really cool is Jedi Fallen Order, because there's this one thing that's been foreshadowed early in the game about how Cal, like if he ever meditates, he's worried about losing control, right? And like at some point later in the game, like when you meditate and you leave, suddenly you go through PTSD through Order 66, and like it completely caught me off guard. Like, wait, what the hell? Where am I? And that's the kind of thing. Oh, it's raining now. Anyways, and that's the kind of thing. And that's the kind of thing that games can really do to catch players off guard. They don't take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think I often reflect on like what were the best like horror pieces of media in the last like 28 years or so. And like Courage the Cowardly Dog comes to mind. That's like a children's cartoon, and it's more scary than or presents more interesting ideas than Outlast does, or than a lot of horror games do. And like when you really think about it, what was the biggest horror game of the last 7 years or 10 years? And that was PT, a demo for something that never came out. So like horror is like in a really, really weird position, especially in video games. I don't know. That might be a topic of a video or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Well, the thing is, we still have time to like make it, but someone might be able to say, "Oh, that's a good idea," and now we don't have a video.
I just want to play this. I just want someone to like really think about what you can do with horror, and really get creative with the video game kind of side of that. You know, I don't really care if someone takes my ideas or whatever. I just want to play these things. You know, I just want things to be better, and so that's why I talk about them. You know,
Now, this is just my personal belief, but I just get the feeling that games try... Oh, okay. But I get the feeling that games try so hard to look nice versus play interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say I will say like maybe something that's like I am of the opinion that you know you could like be creative, but I'm also like if it's a good game, that's the thing is like I don't care if it's like completely like novel or whatnot, just be a good game. And from what I saw, Outlast did not seem like too good of a game. Just seemed kind of boring. Now there's a lot of I'm not just make it like play and be interesting and fun. I don't care if it's like super novel. There's a bunch of novel games that are complete snooze fests. And there's also completely redundant games that are fucking amazing. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing I have to say. Just make it fun. Don't make it just hey, we'll give you like something fun like in like 2 hours. But for right now, just run, just get to the next part.
Yeah, a lot of that, especially a lot of Outlast, is like you can almost speedrun Outlast because you can just if you just skip the enemies and if you know where they are, like it's actually not too difficult at all.
I mean, a lot of the time that I saw like you like going through it was like, yeah, I don't you. It was just like, yeah, where do I go? Oh, I
Yeah,
can't go here. Oh, should I go
I
here?
found I found it more efficient to run in and die to figure out the layout of the level than it was to like sneak through everything. You
Exactly.
know. So it's like, yeah, you run through the level, you look where everything is, and then you come back, and then you figure out where the puzzle is, and you go, okay, so this is what they want me to do. Got it. And I found it, and I mean, I'm not going to finish the game. I might look up a Let's Play or something for it just to make sure that what I think in my head is accurate. I think they use that same puzzle like 3 or 4 times. Of like, turn. Because they did the same thing with that first puzzle. Alright, press 2 buttons, and then turn the thing. And they did it again with the valve. They were like, all right, now turn 2 valves and go down the ladder. It's always like it's like the same puzzle twice, and it might be 3 times. And then the way they shove that new mechanic down your throat with like the shoving of the shelf, which already like ruins one, it ruins the in-game universe, and two, every shelf looks the exact same that you can turn.
You ruined my the cinematic universe of Marvel.
Well, here's the problem. Well, here's the thing, though, Brendan. The reason why you couldn't push the obstacles out of the way was because you hadn't unlocked the skill then.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
Well, no, like why can't I move a bed frame out of the way? That's all there is like a bed frame and some boxes.
Because they glued that to the floor.
the boxes.
This is why I appreciate Valve's level design so much, is because they actually put thought into how you couldn't pass through something.
No, well,
Or they gave you a reason for not wanting to go back, or not wanting to go over there.
well, you didn't know what you didn't know, Brendan. If you looked into the lore, is each box has like 5 dwarf stars, and each dwarf star has like 50 gazillion pounds into it.
Got it. Yeah, everything is way too heavy.
You just don't understand the lore, bro.
You don't understand that lore. So last week I introduced the topic for this week, which was the album Pure Comedy by Father John Misty. No, obviously Father John Misty is not his actual name. The actual name of the the artist is Josh Tillman, a former member of, and I found this out today, the Fleet Foxes, which is another one of my favorite bands. He released this album as his third studio album. It's an American folk album, although it hardly sounds very folk. And it released in January 23rd, 2017. Obviously, this album has a little bit of a reference on that era of American history, which is the election of Donald Trump and a bunch of like political fallout after that, especially in the one side of the American political aisle, which had a lot of people reflecting on what the decisions they had made up to that point, which is it's an era of history that we're still kind of living in. So it's hard to like make an overall summary of the events. Like, I mean, a lot of you probably remember listening to this, remember the things that are now being written for history. But
I thought my
Anyway.
life was a tragedy, but now it's a comedy.
Pure comedy.
anyway, the album is about the human experience, politics, aging, social media, and just human nature in general. It's really good.
Yep.
I
Topics that can
Spoilers.
sound very. You could say. I don't know how I would say it.
I
But-
have a
so-
word for it, but I will say it when we actually start going into our personal thoughts.
Right. So I've already read this. This is the liner notes for this album. This was something that was bundled alongside it, and I read this the other day, and I feel like it's kind of important to include with the rest of the work. I think it's very, very interesting, and a lot of people have not read it. So I was like, oh, it would be cool if we have it read on the podcast. And we even like debated like, should this be like read like by a robot or like, or how should we like display it? Michael DeCity doesn't care. Outed.
Outed. I have been exposed.
Exposed. So he's going to read the essay. It's a lengthy one, so settle in with us. I'm going to include a timestamp, so you can to skip the essay if you would like. I mean, I personally think it's worth a listen, but if you don't want to listen, just get right to our thoughts on the album. You can skip to the time code above. God, I'm going to hate having to do that when I edit this thing, but whatever, it's fine.
LMAO.
LMAO. Pure comedy.
Pure comedy.
Michael.
Pure comedy.
Alright. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new, it has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be, among those who come after. Fuck, I already forgot the fucking Greek-ass name. Ecclesiastes.
Ecclesiastes.
Alright, Ecclesiastes. Pure comedy is the born of a species born with a half-formed brain. The species' only hope for survival, finding itself on a cruel, unpredictable rock surrounded by other species who seem far more adept for this whole thing, and to whom they are delicious, is the reliance on other, slightly older half-formed brains. This reliance takes on a few different names as their story unfolds, like love, culture, family, etc. Over time, and as their brains prove to be remarkably good at inventing meaning where there is none, the species becomes the purveyor of increasingly bizarre and sophisticated ironies. These ironies are designed to help cope with the species' lonesome vulnerability and to try and reconcile how disproportionate their imagination is to the monotony of their existence. Now, all of a sudden, they expect light in the dark, warmth in the cold, and to make something out of nothing. Cooperation among the species to achieve these goals eventually yields a worldview wherein some among the species believe that there are individuals for whom this type of work may be ill-suited. The contribution of the ill-suited is a bit more abstract, inspirational in nature. The ill-suited begin to make subtle distinctions among themselves that extend beyond eaten by a bear or not eaten by a bear. These distinctions involve do-itness, cool face and bodiness, craftiness, etc. An arrangement emerges where these traits can be traded in for better-than-ness. This better-than-ness really starts to run rampant, and the species begins to wonder if there isn't a sky man in the sky who is perhaps the source of all better-than-ness. It seems like a pretty good explanation for why the species is so important. Skyman pretty much runs the show for a really, really long time, and his inner circle of better-thans gets increasingly smaller and smaller, even though by the end of his reign everyone in the species considers themselves one. Unfortunately, there are some better-thans who get together and decide that one way of better-than-ness is better than the other better-thans, better-ness, and teach their little half-formed brain babies as much, most who interpret this distinction as me's versus not me's. Not me's eventually come to encapsulate everyone that is not a single me at any given time, and this paves the world for incredibly distasteful behavior until the species arrives at such a place of alienation and fear there's really nothing so horrible that one of them wouldn't do to the other. To deal with this less than ideal state of affairs, which seems suspiciously incompatible with how progressive and evolved they are at this point, they set about to entertain themselves into an oblivion with politics, sex, finance, philosophy, and other games of war. This they do until they are so numb, and the idea of any not me so untenable, that they are blissfully incapable of noticing they're all dead. This happens more or less on an infinite loop until the end of time. Something like that. Imagine, if you will, the album starts that you're way out in space looking at the Earth, and though it's impossible to fall through space, you start a free fall anyway in the direction of the bright blue marble. For the next 75 minutes, you plummet toward the Earth, losing more and more perspective on what an abstract and impermanent place our place is. How predictably, we step on the same rakes, slip on the same banana peels over and over again through the ages, quickly becoming more and more immersed in our very messy business of being a human. The dubious privilege of being here, the elusiveness of meeting, true love and its habitual absence, random euphoria, inexplicable misery of others, true and more learning counterfeits, a sophistication of answers that don't make sense, the barbarism of our appetites, lucky breaks in injustice, faith and ignorance, crippling mind-numbing boredom, and the terror of it all ending too soon. Before you know it, you've delicately crash-landed and find yourself lying on the back looking up at the stars. If you're lucky, with someone you love, even if it's just for a day, a year, a lifetime. Even just an hour has passed, you have no recollection of what the Earth looked like from the far-flung reaches of space, nor how simple it all seemed a matter of minutes ago. I know everyone doesn't feel the same about what's going on right now. What for some is clearly garden variety violent white nationalism, serving as a catch-all for any number of paranoia-induced anti-fantasies foisted upon the poor and educated precisely by the ideologues bent on manufacturing voters who can be manipulated into voting against their own interests by making good and sure that they remain poor and educated before cravenly blaming their problems largely on people bearing distinctions like race, gender, and sexuality, so people forget everything that's good about the American experiment. Is to others an opportunity to wrench the country back from the influence of hypocritical corporate tyrants bent on enslaving our minds with spineless liberal rhetoric in order to justify wiping out the jobs of decent people so that they can fulfill their fey utopian dream of an impossible global community destined to profit only on its architects. Probably banking consortiums, pedophile rings, and definitely the Illuminati. This album does not espouse either of those views. Both of those views take for granted a certain degree of sophistication, or at least a knack for cooperation, that I'm absolutely convinced humans do not possess. Not to mention some kind of innate logic to the proceedings here on Earth, which make a much better case for some kind of demented joke than anything else. The terrifying reality concerning the dilemma above is everything is chaos, and no one is really in control of anyone or anything. But what about the well-documented history of humans making life a living hell for other humans since time began? There is no intellectual, political, or spiritual explanation that will ever satisfy anyone for longer than a moment. Least of all this, the only explanation with any dignity. An explanation that appeases both our instincts for compassion and liberation. An explanation that we can either accept and move forward together or keep screaming to our respective heavens, "Why, God, why?" Things are the way they are because this is how we, the human race, want them. This is how we want it. Hold the motherfucking phone. Josh Tillman, you have said and done some stupid fucking things since we've known you, but this is too much. Now the liberals and conservatives are both outraged because this is a sentiment so profoundly insensitive to the ways in which the other side is clearly wrong in objective ways regarding basic decency. But what's the alternative? We're all complicit in this purest comedy, or the people who aren't to blame are at war with the people who are to blame until everyone is dead. Simple as that. Is progress possible? What does it look like? The conversion of everyone to our respective beliefs? Well, we've seen how that typically goes. The destruction of everyone who fails to conform? That's not it. The erection of institutions with the power and infrastructure to enforce the rule of law with the good of as many as possible at heart? Not much evidence for that panning out. What I recommend is this. We return to the Vedic cycle and submit ourselves to the likelihood that many of us will end up getting eaten by bears. It's only natural. What if instead of imbuing our expectations for the quality of our lives to include perpetual happiness, dream fulfillment, excessive painlessness, existential certitude, material wealth, and all variety of romantic stimulation, that we are just grateful for every day that didn't involve getting eaten by a bear? What if progress only meant literally progressing from one day to the next without getting violently dismembered by a 9-foot-tall, 500-pound grizzly? The irony here is, of course, the irony here, of course, is that many more humans than we'd like to think, most of whom are not reading this indeterminable liner notes to a folk rock album, do live in daily perpetual fear of getting killed by a mammal far more terrifying than a bear. And I think you know the one which I refer to. This form of mammal attack is made all the more nightmarish by the virtue of the fact that the mammal in question kills purely ideologically. Bears kill because they're hungry. They're very reasonable in that way. So maybe we should submit ourselves to their authority. Bears we can trust. Bottom line is that as long as we expect to live in such a way, immune to the natural laws of this godless rock that govern everything else here, human existence will continue to be a cruel joke. I fear, however, that it is too late for us to go back into the natural order. We have no desire to return to our primal scene. We like the way things are. We've got sandwiches when we're hungry. Airplanes for when we want to go somewhere. Social media when we want our voices to be heard by all God's creation. We know that these magical conveniences come at a staggering price, and that excess is for the few is based on the scarcity of the many. But that's why we invented the business of globalization. We've already built the wall. It's a great, great wall that goes up to the heavens and is as transparent as museum glass. It's a beautiful wall that winds surgically through nations, cities, neighborhoods, and sometimes even homes. It is a globe within a globe, and those who live within its interior are as clueless as what's happening on the other side as we are to what's happening right now, on the far side of Mars. There's only one creature that can penetrate that wall. Friends, and it is bears. Bears can smash through that glass like a pitcher of sugar water through a brick wall. The equalizing revolution of bear justice is coming too. Sooner than you think. As it gets hotter and hotter, they're coming. They're coming into our neighborhoods, they're coming into our schools, into our churches, into our banks, and into our places of business, into our governments, into our beds. The joke is that the best we can do is keep on keeping on, which we've proven ourselves pathologically adept to. We're going to save the planet, all right. And it will be a glorious sacrifice just like the Sky Man we invented shows us how. Bears, man.
I find that very funny. I don't know about you guys, but
it was amusing. I tried to keep myself from laughing because I was reading it.
yeah. Well, thoughts?
Certainly long.
It is.
It is very long.
It is long. My throat's a little dry, so if you don't mind me, I'm going to be drinking my problems away.
I think it's a great, actually, forward to the album, especially when considering the topics that it discovers, and I think this is a little bit more humorous than the album per se. But Bears, man.
Bears
rule, and Bears we trust.
And Bears we trust. Well, friends, shall we start digging into this primordial pie that we have?
Now, this is a kind of a really big piece, so buckle up, everybody. Here we go. I think reading that took us 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Way to go, Michael.
Thank you. I have been used to read very long with very little benefit to me, but it's been fun.
All right, so I've got a lot to say, but I'm gonna withhold for a little bit, and we're obviously gonna go a little occasionally track by track. But I want to start with general thoughts.
Yeah, I was about to say, how about we start with just our general thoughts on the album?
Right. So, Michael, do you want to go first?
Okay, so here we go. I actually really, really enjoy the melody and just it feels like a weird but nice mixture of Elton John, John Lennon, and I don't know why, but I get a kind of a Chicago feel from it. If anyone knows what Chicago is anymore, the melody is so just nice and harmonic, I guess is the word that legitimately I'm growing old on Magic Mountain and Pure Comedy. Those are two songs I would definitely to listen to, like if I'm ever like going on like a long trip. Those would probably. It's just like so nice to listen to. The melody is really nice, but and I would say like every single song has like a nice melody. They all are like kind of like as was said before, like folk songs, but they have like a nice mix to them that really feels kind of like homely, kind of, with the exception of maybe like Total Entertainment Forever, but Total Entertainment Forever I feel it has like a different sound that I also really enjoy. But for the at least like the first half of the album, lyrically, not really too big into. Lyrically,
Really?
lyrically because I like lyrically I kind of liked lyrically I kind of liked Ballad of the Dying Man. There's like a part of me that likes When the God of Love Returns, Will Be Hell to Pay. I probably like my favorite like lyrically is Two Wildly Different Perspectives. Really enjoy that lyrically, but all of them feel kind of preachy and kind of, but also kind of like empty criticism, kind of like jabbing something, but also not really giving any real solutions or like anything of substance. Like Pure Comedy, I know it's like a lot to do with like religion and like the fallacies that we do to like try and justify it. But I've been hearing about it's so like done now that it kind of feels overdone. It almost kind of feels kind of redundant. I've heard so much shit talking about like, hey, hey, religion, it's kind of bullshit, right? And I'm like, I just want to hear like a new sound, other than like the same same old. And even I kind of like Total Entertainment Forever lyrically, even though like it has probably one I would consider like one of the goofiest statements of it, betting Taylor Swift in the Oculus Rift. And I have to admit, I know like a lot of it is like comedy, but it's almost like trying to give like a comedy, like trying to like give like a comedy like special, but also be like, no, I was like trying to be serious this entire time. These are like actual problems. Like, oh, well, I was just mainly here for like the laughs. And I think it's more of a thing because I will as like I try I'm not like the best writer, but I'm trying to like get more like writing stuff out there. With like how he like sets like his I guess you could say like the poetry of of like his stuff is, I will admit, brilliant, but at the same time the subjects within it are like just to me kind of droll. So I will say that my two favorite like songs of here is So I'm Growing Old on Magic Mountain. I really like that. And Total Entertainment Forever. Lyrically, I think those are my favorite. Leaving L.A. Is like, it's so close to like being good, but it has like one part of it that's just like, because like I think like the part when he's like talking about we'll go more into like descriptions later on, but like the part when he's like talking about like his like situation at like the as he was like choking on it, I was like, man, that's actually like really good, real and like really powerful. That's adding like a lot of like emotional like connection and a lot of like showing of like the artist in that. Compared to like nearly anything in like the album. It was I think what I just wanted more is like less of like the kind of nudge, hey, religions are kind of like narcissistic, right? And also kind of like, we make like a lot of like stuff to try and justify, even though it's like a bunch of nonsense. It's like just kind of like I've already heard about it like so often, at least in my life, that I don't want to hear it again. And I just feel so like when I heard it like in Pure Comedy, I was just like, the music's good. I didn't really like care for it. It was just more like nudge, hey, society. And Leaving LA was like just like nearly there. So I'm Growing Old on Magic Mountain was there. 20 Years or so was nearly there. Two Wildly Different Perspectives like had like a societal thing, but but it was also like a thing that I thought was like a little bit more novels, and I really enjoyed it. Smoochie had it, and I really enjoyed Smoochie. But like the rest of them was just like, It's just not my. I guess like at the end of the day, it's just not my preference. Like lyrically, I think I'd like prefer like albums and music that's more like speaking to like the artist rather than nudge nudge society though. But that's pretty much like my take on like the general album.
All right, well,
I liked it. It's kind of weird because there are moments where it's trying to be funny with its social commentary. Like the lyrics was trying to be very ironic in a way. Like personally, one of my favorite one of my favorite parts of the song is what was it? Things it would have been helpful to know before the revolution.
mm-hmm.
And that one's just completely ironic, where they're just like, we overthrew the system, toppled down the ego, set the civilians free. Oh, man, I miss all the conveniences. Oh, hey, he's selling a product. That'll help us. Sweet.
Yeah, which has like kind of a dark ending, or like I guess it can be interpreted as a dark ending because like the cycle starts again.
The first thing when I think of like comedy songs, I immediately think of Weird Al in that sense, the parody, or even Psycho Stick, where they seem to be more like over the top, I guess. Like they're purposely ridiculous with their instrumentation. I don't know, there's probably gonna be some music person out there that's having like a heart stroke hearing this.
Weird Al and like I will say like Weird Al and Psycho Stick are more like because the thing is like it is like I would consider like the album like ironic, which is a lot of like the themes that they're trying to go with, but it's and it has like some funny stuff to it, but it's not like as like blunt as like those two where it's like I'm gonna hit you over the head with like the comedy. It's a lot more like subtle.
Yeah,
well,
it's supposed to be like it's pure comedy because it's not really a comedy. It's a reference to the irony, and the contradictions of the human race.
Exactly.
But like so music or because like it's supposed to be this ironic comedy, but it's still a dark comedy kind of thing. So the instrumentation is very slow. It's like I don't know how to say it. I am not a music person, so it's hard for me to really describe it.
Well, then soldier on and find the words.
It's weird. You say it's smooth, it's soothing, so it's like I can listen to this just as you said it before. You can just listen to this on a long walk. And it's just very like, man, this is like just really nice. But then you listen to the actual lyrics, and it's like that's kind of depressing.
Which honestly, it might be like the entire thing of like Father John is supposed to like. It's supposed to be like a lot of like, hey, this is like a like almost like a John Lennon, Elton John song, where it's like very like happy and stuff like that. But he's just talking about like really like kind of like dark things, kind of like further enhancing like the irony of like the album.
Right, like it's part of the Clash in tone. It's like I'm singing this way like cartoonishly happily, like other pop songs or other folk songs. But when you listen to the contents here, you're like, this sounds hollow, which is interesting considering how a lot of poppy music is hollow. Like you listen to a lot of like the songs that some of these people write, and a lot of these are kind of like propped up by businesses that have like ghostwriters for these artists, and they don't wind up saying anything. And so, and I mean, there's even an instant.
They're designed to be popular rather than say something.
Right, like he even makes reference to like these kind of bands. He's like, I can't remember what song it's in, but he's like, I'm gonna find 5 white dudes and put them up on a billboard in the middle of America, and like that, like it isn't like there's no like art to it. This is people that were found and then started to be sold like a product. I think that's in Memo.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly what's pure comedy.
Pure comedy. And it's also become a meme. That's what I want. Pure comedy.
When we get our own Discord server, that'll be our first emote.
Pure comedy.
Pure comedy. Alright, so I have some disagreements with what was said, and I'll talk about what I'll talk about first, what I want. Like what I like. Pure Comedy is my third favorite album of all time.
It's
It
risen 2
is
spots.
probably my favorite. Yeah, it raised 2 spots after listening. I've listened to this like 6 or 7 times over the course of the week. I just dig everything about the sound design. Even like its worst track to me is still a good track. I think the worst tracks are probably bits of. It's interesting. So like, Leaving LA is really really long, and there's bits of it that are really good, and there are some of it that is like I could go without. And the kind of a way that I think about this kind of stuff, which is admittedly a little shallow, is I go, can I live without this track being in here? Like if it was like, does this like fit within the whole piece of the album? And if it doesn't, then it's like, okay, maybe this doesn't need to be here. But it's also like super subjective, like because you never know like what the artist valued or whatever. So like for that reason, like I feel like bits of Leaving LA could go. I feel like a Bigger Paper Bag. I'm kind of mixed on. I like it still. I like again like the worst song on here. I would give an 8. Like this is like just like a holistically great piece of work, I think, including the essay and everything. Like I just love the whole thing. This is actually like this is like one of the first pieces of music I got really into music with. I actually listened to the C year after it came out when I was in college. So obviously there's kind of a personal connection there as well.
Yeah.
And I just find that it's I don't know. I don't think that it's actually critiquing any of these particular things. I think it's holding a mirror up, saying, "Hey, this is kind of like what society is right now. This might be a bad thing. This might be a good thing. I don't know." I think it's very funny that he constantly references like this return to monkey, like this like this idea that like, oh, we can just abolish the progress of society and we can just go back to the way things were. But of course, in the essay, he's like, "Yeah, I know that's not gonna happen, but." Wouldn't be funny though, and that's even like what the track things that would have been helpful to know before the revolution is. Like literally, they describe like global warming, and then like they tear down the system, and then they're like, oh shit, we kind of needed some of those things, and they start like rebuilding society, and then like but the cycle continues, like people kind of making the same mistakes over and over again. So I kind of agree with the core message of the album, which is that like we're kind of stuck because it's a uniquely human trait to be like contradictory or to be like I don't know, to make up problems of yourself. And that's why I really like songs like When the God of Love Returns and There'll Be Hell to Pay. Like it's very funny because it's like, oh, you made something out of nothing. We make something out of nothing. That sounds very familiar. And it's like this idea of like who's really the creator. You know, it's such a wonderful mix of things. And you said, Mike, that like pure comedy is like, oh, religion bad though. It's like I think it's kind of a shallow critique. Sorry, like there's so much more talked about in this album or in that song specifically than just oh religion bad. It doesn't even say religion bad. It just says like, hey, isn't this kind of funny that like, hey, Jesus is kind of like a zombie, you know, like celestial virgins and like these like crazy costumes or whatever. And that's something that's a critique, I guess, that is made a lot, but like it's such a minimal part of the song. Like the rest of this is about like kings. Like there's a line here in Pure Comedy, hold on, I gotta go to this. But anyway, he talks about who elected these rulers to lead them. You know, like what makes these people so special? And of course, nothing makes them special. There's people that were in positions of privilege, and like the whole song is just like this pointing out of contradictions and things that don't really mean a lot.
We add meaning, we add value to valueless things.
You know, and there's definitely more critiques that you could be levy at the society, like how money doesn't inherently have any value. We just pretend like it does. Like it's just pieces of paper. Like, but we assign so much value and worth to it that people literally kill and start wars over meaningless paper that they could never spend in their entire lifetime. Like there's all kinds of like things that I think are left out here that are interesting, that are also brought up in they're partially brought up in the essay where he's talking about the me's and not me's, and eventually everyone is not me, so we become afraid of the not me's that we just wind up wiping each other out. Like it's such a fascinating
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating look at the human experience, and while it doesn't encompass everything, I don't think it's like a perfect encapsulation of everything, the complexities. It honestly like shouts out that he doesn't know that. Like there's a line in Leaving LA. He's like, oh, there's someone pointing out to me like, oh, another white guy in 2017 thinks he can like make every biting critique of society, and he's like, yeah, I can't really. And even in the essay, he's like, yeah, this is not going to serve as like a really good explanation, and there's 1,000,001 of them. I don't know. I just freaking love this album.
Also, thank you for reminding me where that line was, because that was one of the lines that really stuck out to me, and I'm like, damn it, I can't remember which album or which part of the song that was in.
Yeah. I just love the sound design of it. Holy crap. Like the reverse sound effects, the really like at the start of Pure Comedy tonight at 6 on the news. Like it's and he's like literally the first line is like, "What app is that? What's that app that I'm looking for?" Like each track I can get like each in depth of like why I like the sound design so much. Like in things where would have been helpful to know before the revolution, which is a mouthful, goodness. When that band kicks up and he's talking about the teardown of industry and commerce, and the jazz and the saxophone come in, it's so good. Like I listened to that part alone like 4 times while I was editing our previous podcast today. I just love it so much. And then so I'm growing old on Magic Mountain. The ending sound design to that with like this reverse like piano music. I don't know what instrument it is. It's just so I don't know, everything is so layered in terms of sound design, and that just fit perfectly with the themes that he's talking about. It just goes along with. I don't know. It's such a perfect piece to me. All right, but those are my thoughts. All right, so you guys want to go track by track, or do you guys want to do something else? All right, these are some like lines from like Pure Comedy that like stuck out to me.
All right.
Like especially like this like theme at the end. And I think this is this like again like kind of the theme of the album. And this is like the not the outro, but the end of the second chorus, which is that the only things that seem to make them feel alive is the struggle to survive. But the only thing that they request is something to numb the pain with until there's nothing human left. Like I think like it's such a I don't know. It's again like I just think that everything is written so good. Like I can't describe it outside of like I'm running out of adjectives outside of just like good, and I get excited about it because it makes me think about a lot of things. Because it makes me think about like, and again like there's another line that I think is in Memo where it's like, coffee in the morning, caffeine in the morning, alcohol at night. Like it's like there's just these things that like we all do, and again it's like. It's the mirror. It's not really like supposed to supply a critique of this thing, and it's not really offering a solution either. And I don't think it needs to offer a solution. Like, and it's also like kind of uncharitable. It's mildly uncharitable because it's like, how do you supply solutions to every human problem? And if you got them, you know what? we need them. So maybe don't put the solutions out in an album. Maybe actually like run for office or something. No, this is actually like I feel like this is more a reflection of an artist's view of how society operates. I think it's very accurate in a lot of cases, and I think that I can also understand like the perspective of like, oh well, these are all kind of surface level, but it's like, well, wouldn't everything be surface level because isn't there a lot of like definition to like a lot of things? I don't know. But this is what's really, really good, I think, about this piece, is that this makes you think about these things. It makes you ask about these things. And it makes you reflect on, like, the world that we live in, and how did we get here, and what are the mistakes that we keep making, and, like, how can we improve as a species, even though that, like, the improvements are what can cost us at times. Like, it's such a fascinating piece. And there's so many, like, moving things that, like, there's just so many complexities that it becomes, like, a mind-boggling thing to think about. Like, one of my favorite films, and this is something I might suggest in the podcast one day, is a movie called Brazil. And in Brazil, it has that on a much smaller scale in terms of government, which is that everybody just does what the government tells them to do, even the government. But the government doesn't know why those rules are there. They just do them. And because it's just the way things are. And I think I see some of those same pieces here where there's complexities to things with everything is so in depth that like nobody's really in control anymore. We just do the things because that's what we're supposed to do, and that's the motion of time. Even though it's like, well, we don't really need to do that. We kind of created the world in our image the way we want it to be, because if everybody tomorrow was like, hey, maybe the world should be totally different, we could radically change the planet for the good or bad, depending on ideological viewpoints. It's such a fascinating thing to think about. I don't know. I kind of wanted to go track by track, but like it seems like a lot of work, so I'm going to do like a little bit of an outro. I'll let everybody else say some stuff. I talk a lot. I could go on forever. But yeah, let's just do a little bit of an outro. Michael, go. You can go.
You said, because one of the biggest things is like you're saying it's not a critique, even the like that's probably like the biggest thing that I have to like disagree with you is, sure, it might be. Even if like with your like definition, it might be putting like a mirror, but it's definitely like, especially with like the diction that he's using, it's definitely not showing it in like anywhere near like a neutral like kind of thing to where I that's why I believe it's a critique is because like the entire thing of like written like why you question their sacred text written by women hating epileptics, what makes these clowns they idolize so much remarkable, these mammals are all hell-bent on fashioning new gods. It's not, that is definitely not like neutral, so I definitely think like it, that's why I think it's like it's showing, it might be showing it, but it's definitely not saying these things in a positive light. And the thing that you're talking about, like kings, do you remember that like kings were thought to be God proven,
Right.
like got the God given right to rule? Now, is that like the entire what I think of the entire album? No, I think that you said that, and that's definitely not what I said, and that's not even what I. It's not what I think. It's not the entire thing is religion bad, but it's a lot like a lot. There's a few songs that say like that I just say are kind of honestly empty, with its like critiques that I've just heard time and time again that just bring me out of the album. And I know that you're like really excited about like, oh, it's saying these things about society. I could for me, I guess I'm one of those people that don't really care about like, oh, look, we have to like put the mirror on society. I'm more of a person who more prefers the introspective rather than like looking at the entire things of the human race. So it's like their idea of being free of prison of beliefs that they had never even had have to leave. It's like it doesn't really, it's not really a line I feel as it's made for me. It's kind of like, okay, that's all right. I don't really see as like, sure, we're filled with I guess it's like it didn't really sell me. Sure, we're full of contradictions, but is that really like is it like really a bad thing? Even if it just was not really my, it's just not really my jive, the message that I can really attach myself into.
Well, I
Oh,
guess it's a disagreement about the message.
well,
I really think that it just introduces a bunch of these ideas that I think are really clever or really biting or really funny in certain ways. And I think you can critique something and use harsh language to describe something to either grab attention from the audience or that you're using or you don't have to provide a solution to everything that you critique. And I think that's actually like something that a lot of us fall for. Is that like if you have a negative opinion about something, it's like, well, how do you think you can do it better? It's like, well, no, like you can just say like, hey, like I think might be a problem, or and he even makes reference to that in the work, so that's why like I have like a bit of a contention, and it's like it's also like such a wide piece, so like I understand that it's like, yeah, this doesn't really dive deep into like the complexities of like each individual like human problem, but I think that it's an interesting reminder of like, hey, this is all the stuff that's going on right now, and again, which is in the time that it's written, which is like the rise of this character in America and there's this vitriol or whatever. I think it's a especially as an American piece, like it's very like it's very. I think it's kind of very, like the more you think about it, it's like, well, yeah, this is really American focused. Like it's very like an American idea.
Even if I was to like read this as like a poetry piece, I will say that he does have a way of like presenting these things very interestingly, and just the way that he like phrases things is, I have to give credit to where credit is due. He is very good with that. He is very clever with how he delivers these things, but at the same time, it's just that might be like the biggest thing is it's just not. It is It might be thought provoking, but I just don't personally see it as that way. It's like I think it's it's all kind of like honestly a lot of it is honestly kind of base, at least this point in time. At the very least, at like the first half, I would say is just not really my thing. I think I just prefer more of like the introspective.
I think it's really interesting. It's like I prefer the first half of the album as opposed to the second half, and you're like, I'm not a big fan of the first half as much as the second half. I don't know.
I think it's just more like a difference of like where we basically want to see more discussion talked about? Do we want to see more on like the introspective or the artist, or do we want to see more about those things of the, the questions of society that we have?
I think
like
it's
kind of
really both. Like I like both, but for this one piece, I just kind of like that. I thought this was a good summarization of like where at least America was in 2017, which I think is that's a fitting enough way to end it. I don't want to turn this into Brendan and Michael fight.
Brendan and I.
Brendan and Michael fight while Will just sits in the middle like, please, can we not have a...
Will, mommy and daddy are fighting. Just go get some like McDonald's or something.
Just play Resident Evil 5. Can I get a McFlurry?
Absolutely not. You'll get apples and nothing more.
You get the caramel apples. So anyways, Star Blasted. All right. So final ratings for pure comedy. We're trying to figure out how to like. Sorry. Before I do pure rating or pure ratings.
Pure rating.
Pure
unadulterated rating.
There you go. Which is it's even funny. Like Ballad of Dying Man references like a guy that's like struggling to like figure out how to like balance rating everything in the world, and his like dying breath is like reading the news feed for people to critique. It's very funny. Anyway, if you have any input on the show of like how we could better critique albums or whatever, please let us know. Because I got stumped about halfway through this one because I was like, damn, how do we actually break something like this down? This is kind of a lot.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind that at least for me, this is the first time I think that actually for all of us, this is the first time rating an album. So I don't know what I'm doing. Someone please send help. Fax. I am faxing to you SOS. Not morsing it to you, faxing it. But in actuality, just like give us any like and all critiques that you can that you'd like that come up to mind. We would really appreciate it. This is our this is at least my first time doing like a podcast, and any feedback would be greatly appreciated.
There we go. We did it. Oh my god.
We beat racism.
We did it. It's over.
All right, so we're gonna do
so
final ratings
for pure comedy. Michael.
The thing is, like, even though that I have those critiques, I still think like overall, the album is actually pretty fucking good. All the at least like half of like the messages are like in my mind pretty good. I really dig like the melody and like the just like the cadence of the song. It's got like a really good sound. So I really would have to probably give it like a 7 out of 10. 7 out of it's pretty good for me, but I don't think it's quite a masterpiece.
Well,
I liked it.
That's not a rating, Will. That's just how you felt.
Look.
It'd be so funny if this is where it left. He's like, I like this.
I mean, it's hard. Look, it's hard for me to rate something for something I love. All right.
Don't worry.
To rate a music. I'm not that critical of music. I just liked it. I don't know.
Don't worry, Will. I won't let Brendan beat you.
Thanks. I mean, I personally, I really enjoy the melodies, and I personally also enjoy basically the pointing out the ironies of just human nature in general. I don't know. I guess I would have to get like an 8 or 9, I suppose.
Right. So after that conversation, clearly you think like, oh, he's gonna give it a really high rating. Well, you're wrong. Guess what? Haha. I actually give it a 5 out of 10.
Oh, shit,
that would be a shocker.
No, obviously this is a 10 out of 10 album for me. I love every bit of it. Even its worst track is something that I really, really groove to. While it's not my favorite album of all time, we'll get there.
We will get there someday.
We'll get there someday. I still think it's a good summarization of at least of American culture in that era. There's obviously a personal connection to it, and I think that it's just in terms of like sound design, in terms of like lyrically, it's just masterful. Well, there's like definitely some hollowness, I think, to some of or like not hollowness to like critiques, but hollowness to like there's some things missing here that I think would be really biting, that could be really fascinating. And I think that there's possibly not a balanced mix of, like, before I had this as like a 9.5, and I'm like, I kind of go back and forth between 10 and 9.5, for those reasons of, like, it doesn't give you enough of a, because I talk so much praise, I got to shit on it. I don't think it gives you enough of a characterization of the artist himself and the person that's reflecting on these things happening around him. I think it would be much more of an interesting critique or interesting holistic piece if you got both of, this is why I view things this way, and this is the way I view it. And I agree that there is, like, kind of a chasm in between those two things. And that's why I say, like, Leaving LA is, like, an interesting track. Like, I even said, like, I think last week that, like, at that time it was, like, one of my least favorite tracks. Now my least favorite track is probably Brown Paper Bag. Not that it's, again, none of these tracks sound bad. None of these tracks are, like, poorly written, I think. But, like, it's just, it gets to the point of, like, does this work as a holistic piece? And so that's why I'm on a 10 for right now. Again, it's my third favorite album of all time. I think it's really, really good. Makes me think about things in a deep way. Very cool. Very cool. Very based. Pure comedy. Very based. Very based and sound build. Alright, thank you for listening to episode 3 of the Media Cocktail Podcast. Oh, this is an interesting one. This wasn't we got to fumble a little bit with the album review. That's alright, but that's on me. I'm the host, trying to figure this out. How to do it the best way. Don't know. Figuring this out.
He was also very, 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 very excited for us to show us this.
Oh yeah, I was very excited because I really wanted to hear what everybody thought about it, and I did. It's great.
And now, in Brendan's heart is disappointment.
Nah. For the no, I'm not disappointed. For the worst thing you say is, like, hey, I didn't like this as much as you did. That's not that's not nearly as bad. The only problem I ever had with your critique was I thought the way I heard it was it sounded shallow, and then when you expanded upon it, I was like, okay, that makes it a little more sense.
Fair enough.
All right, so we've already made our.
Everybody.
Thank you. Well, it's like, all right, we're out.
We have signed the
tab out.
We have signed the we have signed the peace treaties, Brendan and I.
No.
No, we're gonna keep fighting. I'm gonna keep this war going on for as long as it needs to go on.
We're talking about Death Parade, like episode 12, and then we're like, but what about pure comedy, though?
It was almost a 10 out of 10, but you didn't like pure comedy as much as I did. I'm just saying.
No, I was gonna say,
a price of a mile.
We've already made our next recommendation for next week, which is Michael's. This is falling apart. Oh my god, Michael's recommended us to watch Death Parade by the end of Friday, or yeah, we record these on Fridays, so yeah.
Yeah, preface it by saying it's my second favorite show of all time.
It's the second favorite. I've been told to preface this by saying it's the second favorite show of all time. It's a little birdie in my ear.
You can still hear me.
No, I cut your audio feed a while ago. I cut you off when I said, "What did you think of pure comedy?" And you said, "I really liked it," and that was it. That's all you said. That's all you said.
We really do be living in 1984, don't we?
Literally 1984. Literally.
We have regressed as a society.
All right, thank you for listening to episode 3 of You Fucked Up. I almost said Bars and Tone. I'm losing it.
Thank you, everyone. Hope we didn't lose the shit too much.
Bye-bye. Will already tabbed out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.